Hi, I'm Dante.
And I'm Tommy.
And you're listening to Twigging Onto Twig, a podcast where we talk about Wildbow's most militant web serial, Twig.
Today's episode, we have a very special guest, Jenny, co-host of
Woo!
Poke in Comparison.
Yay! What's up, Stitches? Yeah!
Thank you for
Nice.
coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I still haven't finished the story yet because I need to get past the part where my heart breaks.
But you are therefore further than we are.
Yes, I sure
Our
am.
hearts are still firmly
Intact.
intact.
They're still intact, unlike a lot of characters in this book, I guess. But
Both literally and emotionally.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, this is exciting. I don't know if I don't think I ever told you guys, but I was brainstorming podcasts with Malia a long time ago, and I had a idea for a Twig one, and it was going to be getting tipsy on Twig or something, and it was going to be like one of us had to be drunk because I was like, there's no way I can get through this whole thing. Like,
I'm very much in favor of you two starting.
All right, maybe we'll have to.
I do have my glass of wine right here. I don't know if it's enough to get me.
Yeah, I've got.
Cheers.
I've got wine. Cheers. Dante is
Cheers.
the
designated driver of this episode.
No, I've got the last can of the Beyond the Pale beer that we got for the All Packed Up 2 stream.
Woo!
Speaking of which, Jenny, I really loved your alabaster flapper outfit.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought of that really terrible pun probably about an hour before we went on. I was like, Malia, what if I got really, really pale? And what if you got kind of darker in comparison? It'd be so funny. And then she got stuck with a cat on her lap, so it was mostly me being
It was pretty great.
Thank you. I was very happy with myself. And then I got really drunk on wine, and that was fine. But I don't drink a lot, so I think I may have overdid it a little bit. But
I think it's easier to get drunk when you have kids. Somehow, I think it's the exhaustion.
I think so. Because you're like, oh my gosh, I need this, and then
yeah. I was talking to a coworker today. We had a after work thing, and he has a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old and 2 5-month-old twins.
Oh man.
And that just sounds exhausting. He's like, just a Corona and I'm out.
And you're out. Yeah, I can see it. That's exhausting. That's a lot of little.
He's like, oh, I have an 8-month-old, and he's like, oh, you know how I'm feeling. I'm like, no, you have it 1,000 times worse than I have it. There's no comparison.
Yeah, I always thought that I don't know. I think that anyone with twins should get double maternity leave.
Oh, absolutely.
But it doesn't work like that, which is the stupidest thing because it should.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, America's maternity leave's jacked up as hell anyway, but still anywhere it should just be double.
No matter what.
No matter what. Because
makes sense to me.
Yeah, you can you're carrying 2 of those things, and now you're having to take care of 2 of those things, and I mean things in a really loving, nice way.
But still,
of course.
Yeah.
Also, I apologize. I go on tangents sometimes, so you guys might have to bring me back. Okay.
Or we follow you.
Or you follow me
into the breach.
Yeah. Just go down the rabbit hole and talk about weird things.
Absolutely.
She says this as if this is a bad thing, as if that wasn't the reason we all love her podcast so much.
Good. I'm just assuming, I'm like, your podcast seems like respectable.
You're trying to call us boring.
What was that? I did not say boring. I said respectable. I do not think you guys are boring.
Right, so in the interest of starting off out of the rabbit hole, on today's episode, we're covering Cat Out of the Bag 2.11. And I believe you, Dante, wanted to read the...
Oh, you want me to read this part?
I want you to read the audiobook sections that you put in, because you listened to the audiobook.
Okay. So, the audiobook description. Cat Out of the Bag 2.11, in which Cy discovers why Professor Hale was so testy about those badges. This chapter also features foreshadowing that will take the rest of the work to fulfill.
Ooh.
And then we also cover Enemy Arc 2.
As your holiday gift, dear listeners, I present to you the end of Arc 2. Our good friend Lauren Sherman returns once again as the voice of Reverend Maurer. Do you suppose his first name is actually Reverend? In a gripping flashback, what happened on the fateful day set this man on his holy crusade against the Academy? Who is Maurer's comrade with the vaguely southern accent? Why did Maurer have a shiny thing in his mouth in 2.11? The answer to these questions and more lie within this chapter.
That does remind me of something, actually, that is very random.
Go for it.
So he said his first name, is his first name actually Reverend? There's a doctor that, an OB doctor, where I work, that I was really confused for a long time because his name is
Doctor.
No, but what is it, Dr. Fothergill. And so I was like, Dr. Fothergill, and apparently he's So apparently,
is his name Father?
That's what I was. I was like, okay, what I didn't see, because everyone would talk about it and be like, yeah, Dr. Fothergill, blah blah blah, and I was like, I guess he's a really good doctor to have. Which, I mean, my doctor was great. I didn't have him, but so I honestly was like, maybe he's a priest. Maybe he's a doctor priest. I don't know.
You keep all the titles you go on? Like, if he becomes an astronaut, is he like astronaut Dr. Father?
Don't they do that in German? Maybe he's German and that's just part of his culture.
Well, I found out he's not a priest recently, and it's just Fothergill is his whole last name. But which kind of ruined my image of him, because I was picturing, the whole
he's wearing a lab coat with the little collar.
Exactly, just okay, push, having rosaries on hand to people and. So he's not a priest, but he is a good doctor, I guess. So who knows? His name could be Reverend.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, I think we talked about that last time or time before. We never see his first name. Do you think his first name is Reverend? You know what I bet? I bet his first name is Maurer. Maurer is his first name.
I mean,
maybe he's like that guy in Pale. His name is Maurer. My friends call me Maurer. Maurer.
Do you think Wildbow's repeating the joke?
Yes.
Not.
Just copy paste. He was out of ideas one day because Wildbow runs out of ideas.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Totally. Just copy paste from an old thing.
That's funny. I hope not for the poor man, but you never know.
If he recycles ideas, that's good for him because he has good ideas that are worth recycling.
Yeah, that is true.
But that man has the most
ideas,
productive imagination
his brain.
Many people I've read their content from. So
yeah, he's
very impressive.
Very impressive. He's a smart dude. Smart guy.
Yes.
Yep.
I did also want to call out Lauren Sherman. Because when we did the interlude for Arc 1, Lauren Sherman did that, and we asked, "Who's Lauren Sherman?" I don't know, some guy, I guess. But as it turns out, Kimberly Dauber, who does the audiobook, has a audio production group that she makes little audio dramas with, and Lauren Sherman is one of her colleagues in that. So. Okay. They actually have this professional audio producing relationship. So he's not just some guy she found on the street and was like, hey, I need someone to read this audiobook. I actually was listening to some of the stuff that they've made together, and it's pretty good.
You mean outside of
this? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something that's sweet and poignant, they did one called Congratulations, Dear Stranger. The podcast feed is called Hear Me Out Productions Presents.
Do you want to put a link to that in the...
I will. It's quite good. Yeah. Both Kimberly Dauber and Lauren Sherman are voice actors in it. And, yeah.
I should probably listen to at least a chapter of this in the audiobook format. Sounds...
just so that you can know... Just because I keep bringing up stuff that...
Yeah, just to have that context. Especially since I'm going into, after this, completely new content for me. We have reached the end of what I have read with Twig. Yes.
Oh my god.
It is exciting. It's also intimidating because I look at my live read stuff from when I was reading this last year, pre-baby, and my post-baby brain feels much stupider than
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
yeah. And like, it's just I was saying relatively smarter things back then. I don't know that I'm saying smart things now, or that I was saying smart things then, but it was smarter than what I am noticing now.
Yeah, baby brain, and it lasts for a while. So, at least for the women, and I'm assuming probably for you as well, just because
it's
if you're getting
tiredness, it's exhaustion,
it's like you have to. I mean, you're trying. Well, I don't know if you have to worry about that as much with the 8-month-old. You might have to, but you spend a lot of energy trying to make sure your kids don't do something to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything goes right into the mouth. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, you're right. What am I saying?
Like,
of course.
Nope, don't eat the wires. Nope, don't eat whatever. Don't put the cat's tail in your mouth. Don't put it's really just everything. If it goes into the hands, it goes into the mouth.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of funny also how it's like a tool for climbing things. Like, oh, I'm gonna put my hand on the edge of the chair and then my mouth to pull myself up, and then the other hand.
That's really. I don't know if I've ever noticed my kids doing that. Honestly,
It's really funny.
That's really ingenious. That's a baby genius right there.
But yeah, speaking of the baby brain, just to go on tangents, I was realizing today I started a new job at the baby was 4 months old, and I had my interview with the department that I work for now at 5 weeks, and I just realized I have zero memory of the interview itself. Like, I have no idea who I talked to, what I said, any of that.
I'm sure it went great.
I got the job.
You got the job.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe if you, I don't know, maybe if your brain hadn't been like that, you wouldn't have gotten the job.
It's possible. I don't know. But yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So before we get into the general thoughts, there are a few, well, there's not a few, there's a specific bit of housekeeping and announcement stuff that we want to talk about. Hopefully this episode comes out before then, but next weekend, November 12th, 2023, it is the 12th, right?
Yes.
Yes, November 12th. Wait, on the Sunday? I thought we were doing Saturday.
No, the Saturday is Remembrance Day.
Oh, you're right, yes. On the 12th, we are hosting or holding a fan meetup at Mill Street Pub in Ottawa. So
jealous.
Yes. You should come.
Not that far.
A little far of a drive. Be like, okay, kids, get in, get ready.
I mean, if there's anyone listening to this who is close enough to be willing to come and isn't already planning to come,
please do.
I would be kind of surprised. But if you're out there, come hang out with us.
Yeah, go. I'll live vicariously through you.
Woo!
It's gonna be fun.
Go and party, and I don't know.
And just for the reason we chose Mill Street is because there's a reference to it in Pale as Hill Street Pub, where Pact Spoilers characters show up and go in Ottawa to talk about the Pale characters.
That's cool. That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that was kind of a play on a real place.
Yep, it's fun.
That's a good reason. Yeah. Okay, all you guys listening that can go, you just have to go. So it's all.
You don't have a choice. Jenny said so.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. You have to go now. So get your plans together.
If you don't come, we'll
judge you.
Stitched.
Oh, that too.
Okay. All right.
Tommy's like, we're going to cut that off and just go right.
Okay, since this is a tangenty episode, I want to mention this before we get into anything else. My wife is a big knitter. She knits a lot. She has a knit night thing, and she was talking about, if she doesn't have a project to go, she'll just go and graft someone's toes for them. Which is attaching toes onto a sock, but it felt very twiggish.
What? Graft someone's toes for them?
That's amazing. Also, I would not have understood what she was referring to if you hadn't explained that.
Oh my goodness. I was like, yeah, I was really confused. So, okay.
Knitters need to do that more often, just casually go up to someone and say, "Hey, do you need your toes grafted on?"
Oh man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I probably should mention, like, the very first thing in our notes for general thoughts is this is probably going to be a long episode, and that was before we realized, like, we're all friends and having a good time and going on tangents. Because there's a lot to talk about. So if we have to chop this up into a few pieces and release them separately,
episode, or hefty chapters.
Hefty
pair of chapters.
Yeah. Tommy has agreed to edit this one, so glory and honor to him.
Yeah, hopefully it'll get through. Last time I tried to edit, it took me a long time. Computer kept crashing. I realized I was running out of memory on the computer to like edit the whole podcast. So fingers crossed it'll go faster this time.
We'll see. If it doesn't, no big deal.
Yeah.
Story's not going anywhere. I also wanted to say, like, these two chapters are super different. Like, very little overlap. If we had been smart, we would have done this as two different podcast episodes, I think. But we're not smart, so we're just going ahead with it.
You guys are totally smart. You can
not smart enough to split this into two pieces, apparently.
Maybe it's actually a genius move, and you're so subconsciously smart that you realized it.
Like, these two chapters, their juxtaposition is just so intricately.
You know it's smart because he used the word juxtaposition.
There you go. Like,
yes, and unlike intricately, I pronounced it properly.
Hey, that's okay. I feel like someone told me once that, like, if you hear someone mispronouncing words, it actually just means that they read a lot. And they're not necessarily using those words in spoken, that they just know have read it. So actually, it could be a sign of extra intelligence.
Well, I've definitely known some people who read a lot who are not very smart. But
hey, but they're trying. Or at least
absolutely. The effort is there.
Yeah. Not everyone's born with a wild bow brain. Okay. Some people have to. I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't work, because he works really hard. But
throughout most of Pale, I'll be like, "Oh, new chapter of Pale came out," and my wife's like, "Oh, does he not rest ever?"
And no, he doesn't. Hopefully, he is now. But
writing poke and essays and
I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm like, no, Wild Bow, stop.
I wonder if he's one of those guys who like tries to take a bit off and is just like going so stir crazy that he can't help it, and he just churns out a few cereals before he starts up again.
Yeah, I guess.
The Brandon Sanderson, like, I'm bored, let me write a present book.
Yeah, his essay that he wrote was pretty interesting. Like, about his whole writing process,
the structure and like the collapse of like routine.
Yeah,
like, I mean, the sheer volume that he's produced in the last 3 years is insane.
I just swallowed really loud.
I did not hear it.
Okay. It sounded loud to me. I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to have to edit that.
No one would have noticed it, but
I don't believe in editing.
Now he's going to like turn it up so that he can. I'll be like,
Yeah, so Tommy's editing style makes Malia seem like she cuts like half the content out.
Wow! Oh my god!
You say that, and I said that last time. I was like, "Oh, I'm not cutting anything out," and then I cut this whole segment that was, "Oh, can you hear me? Are you hearing me? Is there sound right now?" So I got rid of all of that.
That's really funny.
It happened right after a bit where I was like, "Oh, I'm not cutting anything." I was like, "Wait, no, this is actually really boring."
Like, no, Malia does edit some things.
Yeah.
No,
just
she
not
doesn't.
the things.
It is officially canonical on this podcast that Malia never has cut any content ever.
That's yeah. I mean, some boring stuff maybe, or like if I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get some water," there's a big period of silence. Yeah. She just doesn't cut what I want her to cut. That's the main. But it's kind of weird that way. Yeah, I think it's probably better. She does a good job.
Yeah. So, Dante, you wrote in our notes here, Remembrance Day. Elaborate, please.
So, Remembrance Day is next Saturday. I assume that Americans have some observation of some sort on that day?
Nope.
Not at all?
Nope.
The
Not as far as I'm aware of.
the signing of the armistice of World War One?
No, I mean, that sounds like that should be a good thing to
Okay.
remember.
There's Veterans Day.
Yeah.
I thought that Americans had like a parallel military-esque holiday.
Oh, it is Veterans
to
Day.
ours.
It is on November 11th. I thought Veterans Day was earlier on the year, but what do I know?
Huh.
So you are correct.
I knew an American thing, and the two Americans didn't know it.
I am.
For some reason, I thought Veterans Day already passed too. What the hell? Okay, I thought it was. I was like, what? Didn't we just have that? Okay. Apparently, I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, the reason I bring this
Good
up,
job, man.
not only because it happens to be the same weekend as our meetup that we insist that you all come to, but also like this whole interlude with the
Mm-hmm.
Mauer and the trench warfare and all that. Like, probably this episode's going to be released pretty close to Remembrance Day, and it just happens to be highly appropriate.
That is very appropriate.
It is.
So-
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I think we want to talk about regarding the parallels between Mauer's experience and, like, at least as we understand it, the experience of a soldier in World War One,
Yeah.
especially.
Mhm. The audiobook actually had an extra spoiler warning. Not a spoiler warning, a trigger warning on that chapter. For like, this chapter has, detailed description of trench warfare. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, something to listen to on Remembrance Day to get the feel of, get your mind in the right space.
Yeah.
Even if it is fictionalized fantasy version of it.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty accurate, I guess, or not accurate is not the right word, because it is, like you said, the fantasy version, but it's very evocative.
Mm-hmm. I was actually
Yes.
thinking earlier, this is like such a good, accurate portrayal of what it's like to fight in a trench. And I was like, what are you talking about? You never fought in a trench. How do you know what it feels like if it feels accurate?
But we have.
But it is very, like you said, evocative. Like, it really
like we
brings
have
you there.
this,
And
we've read All Quiet on the Western Front. We've seen Gallipoli. We
I haven't.
Well, okay. We've seen instances of trench warfare. We've we know it. It's part of our popular culture, at least.
That's true.
The way it
Tommy,
was.
I realize why we thought that Veterans Day already passed. We were thinking of Memorial Day.
Oh.
What's Memorial Day?
That is honoring and mourning, like, military veterans who have passed while serving.
So you have two Remembrance Days, essentially.
I guess so, yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Ours is in May.
Do Americans get time off for Veterans Day? Because I know Memorial Day gets a day off, usually.
Yeah, Memorial Day you do. I'm trying to remember.
I can't... I mean, obviously I live in Canada now, so it's different. I get that day off, the 13th, that Monday, but I don't remember ever getting time off for Veterans Day in November. Like, the only November holiday I remember time is Thanksgiving.
See, I don't remember that either, but I'm also a nurse.
Which means that you have a very different work schedule.
Although now I work in it's like a weird, it's like kind of clinic, but kind of well, it's definitely a procedural area, but it's like we do inpatient and outpatient.
Okay.
And so we have clinic hours, but we're on call. And so, yeah. So, I don't know, but I guess we'll...
Anyway, and we're also, like, I think me and Tommy both work for the Canadian government, which does give holidays on Remembrance Day when most other businesses don't.
Yeah.
Woo!
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So.
Long weekend.
Yep, long weekend.
Somber weekend, but long weekend.
So
the other.
Oh, go ahead.
You're just going to say, now, Dante, I see in the notes that you wrote something here. Can you tell us what it is?
No, because I wrote the actual text in the notes beyond just the words at the top. I wrote details. So I was going to jump into it.
Tommy, I see that you wrote something in the notes. Why don't you tell us what it is?
Sure. Does it bother you when I do that?
No, I'm just making fun of you because we're friends and that's what friends do.
It's true.
I don't know. I feel hurt. But yeah. So I just thought it was interesting, the parallels between the bracketing of this arc with the pretty much the same lines of Rick and Jamie both telling Sai to put his hood up because of the rain, and he's going to catch a cold. And I'm not 100% sure what Wildbow is necessarily doing there. So Wildbow has mentioned that he was doing something specific with arc structures in Twig and the way arcs are written and organized, and I'm assuming the bookends.
We have sort of speculated that, or you at least mentioned the idea that the arcs in Twig are dime store novels.
Yeah. So it makes just both arcs so far have mentioned people being super into dime store novels or like specific characters. It kind of feels period appropriate for like that kind of thing. Like it's like the precursor to a web serial is the dime store novel. The author producing these books that lead into each other and have a individual structure to it, but are kind of tied together. Like the Nancy Drew books or Tom Swift or whatever. All of those like kids books in theory that are like, I don't know if repetitive is the right word, but a lot of them were in a way that a web serial isn't, but it's still related, I guess. Just like it comes out quickly. It's the author's producing it. I don't really know where I'm going with this thought. But it's just something I noticed that this bracketing, and I don't remember Arc 1 necessarily having this same kind of like structural bookends or narrative bookends.
I actually didn't notice this until just by accident. So like I noticed that Jamie talking about putting the hood up was paralleling something that Rick had said before.
Yeah.
But it was only when I accidentally clicked on the link to 2.1 instead of 2.11 that I was like, oh wow, this is like actually bookending the arc.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting.
Some accidental insight right there.
Yeah, so I don't know whether like I want to say it's some insight into Sai's character and like protect him rejecting people doting on him, even like if it's people that he cares about, but I don't know what that says about the arc as a whole, because I'm assuming it should be saying something about the arc as a whole.
Honestly, I think it just like the dime store novel thing that you mentioned. I think it just reinforces that. Like we were kind of thinking like, oh, it's kind of like that, but now it's like, no, we've got like the structure of a self-contained story.
Yeah,
because stories usually do have that sort of like tying the end to the beginning, and so if he's doing that deliberately within a single arc, then that reinforces this idea that we are treating each arc as sort of a story in and of itself.
Sure, that absolutely makes sense.
That is my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, me too. I don't know if it's just, Jenny, you sound a bit soft. I don't see that it picked up.
Hello.
Now I'm seeing little jiggles on the line.
Yeah,
here.
it looks soft, but I don't know.
She was deep in thought, that's why.
Yes, I was deep in thought. Dante, I also want to tell you, while he was talking, your cat jumped from like a stupidly high level down on the chair, and I know that's like a cat thing, and that's probably normal, but I was really impressed. I was like, oh wow, is the cat okay? Of course. I'm impressed.
It's a cute cat.
Yeah. This is a different cat than last time. This is my own cat.
Ooh.
Her name is Orange. She's orange.
She's orange. I love it.
Yeah. Shall we get into our plot section?
Sure.
Because yes, this has all so far been just introductory. Who wants to do the previously on Twig?
Previously on Twig, Mauer has been defeated. He and his followers are on the run, and because he threatened to shoot Helen in front of a crowd, he has lost his sway over them. Sai has instructed the Academy forces to win over the crowd and blame Mauer for the whole situation.
2.11, the Lambs return to the Academy, where their injuries are looked at by hedge doctors. Using their badge, they have someone go fetch Professor Briggs, and they make their report. Briggs acknowledges that the Lambs did well on this mission. He promises to grant them and Hale the things they requested. Badges, funding, more staff, badges, and so forth.
More badges. But no birds.
No birds. Birds are right out.
He drew a firm line.
He also says that in the coming weeks and months, he will be testing the Lambs to find their breaking point. Briggs gives Lacey a folder to give to Hale. He leaves, and Lacey begins to leave too, but becomes suspicious and turns around to find Cy following her. Cy says he wanted to have a look at the folder that was for Hale, and Lacey decides to let him read its contents. Cy reads the file and becomes very sober and quiet. The Lambs go back to Lambsbridge. Mary, for the first time, goes with them, and to her chagrin, she will be rooming with Helen. Finally, Cy reveals what was in the file. It discusses what the plans are for replacing the Lambs when they break, and more importantly, it states that the Academy intends to revive one of the other Lambs, presumably Ashton or Yvette. And it's worth noting that Cy is upset about this because he knows that he might have accidentally prevented this from happening with all of his insistence on badges.
In 2.x, this is a flashback to when Maurer was in the war. Maurer is in the trenches, remarking on the scene around him. He takes note of a stitch whose eye appears to have been taken from an innocent person, a woman or a child. Explosions are going off nearby, including some big ones they call pants shitters, which makes sense.
Yep.
The captain of the regiment comes by with water for everyone. Maurer confirms he's doing okay. The captain remarks, Maurer looks more stitched than human, which doesn't really sound okay. Suddenly, the earth shakes. Maurer looks out of the trench to the nearby coastline and sees 2 living ships arrive. Each ship releases a giant war beast. The war beast breathes out a gas which contains some kind of communicable disease or parasite. The soldiers are ordered to leave the trenches and attack the artillery installations. Maurer says a prayer and goes over the top. The Stitch with the innocent eyes is killed. Maurer and his comrades slaughter all the enemy forces on the ground. Maurer is hit by an artillery gunfire, which takes his arm off. Time skip to the present day. Maurer meets up with the captain. They reminisce about how after the battle, they and their comrades had talked and planned for today. Gorger shows up, but he is chased off by Maurer's rifle and whiskers. The chapter ends with Maurer being confident moving forward.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. And as you said earlier, very different chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And a lot going on in each of those chapters,
yes,
too.
Absolutely. It's worth noting that Maurer, like that 2.11 is really it really focuses on the Lambs. It's the wind down at the end of the Lambs chapter. Does not really mention Maurer.
Mm-hmm.
It's only very peripheral to Maurer. But Maurer is the focus of Tube.x.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also interesting because I feel like there was I may be misremembering because I have not reread the end of Arc 1, but I feel like there was more of a focus on Percy towards the end of Arc 1, maybe because of Mary, in the wind down versus here where I feel Maurer had more agency is not necessarily the right word because both of them do have agency, but I feel like Maurer is more of a peer antagonist than Percy ever was. So it's interesting for him to not be the focus and for the Lambs themselves to be the focus of the wind down.
Maybe that's like to kind of lull you or lull. It shows that like the Lambs are kind of like in a false sense of security, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they think that it's done, over with, completed. Briggs is happy, we're happy, we can move on to other things. Meanwhile, Maurer is like, we're just getting started here.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Percy has been wrapped up in this other conspiracy and presumably does not have much agency and power. It does feel like Maurer still has a lot of, and we know Wildbow likes to write about power structures and perceptions of power and all that. And I feel like this is very much tying into that.
Now, on that subject, Percy is still out there.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, the longer he takes to get to Mary, the more Mary, the less likely I think it is for Mary to like go back to him.
Do you think that Percy and Maurer might encounter each other at some point?
I do kind of assume there's some connective tissue between these different groups of anti-academy groups. Some kind of whether it's my bold and specific prediction, I think last episode, that it's the Crown pushing down, trying to bring the academies down a peg, or there's actually a rebellious movement. I assume these different rebel groups are linked somehow.
Okay.
Which I guess means that Maurer will at some point narratively probably have to encounter Percy, at least on some level, or at least the tools that Percy has used and created. I don't see, if we take Mauer at some of his word, which I kind of do, I don't see Percy being the kind of person that Mauer would want to associate with. I don't see Mauer really being the type of person to be like, let's use the tools of our enemies against them, despite him, being comfortable using whiskers and all that. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like Mauer is the type of person to replace the Academy with the Academy, but him in charge. Whereas that would be Percy's motivation.
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
And maybe I'm being too generous to Mauer. But it feels like he has a certain integrity.
Yeah, no, I think based on what we've seen of Mauer so far, I think he would be just as unimpressed with Percy's methods as with the Academy themselves.
Yeah,
for sure.
So in terms of Mauer's actual plot, the plot that was gradually revealed over the course of the arc and that we still weren't entirely sure what's going, we got a bit more of it here, which was essentially just confirmation that he was trying to get the people to attack the Academy and then be defeated by them.
Yeah.
And he just says, there are some feelings that you can get from being defeated that are worth exploring.
Well, I kind of feel like that's what his whole arc or his whole enemy thing is kind of about. He realizes that the enemy, or the I think it's the Mexicans that he's fighting for the crown, are just as much victims as he is, or that he is as much of an enemy of the crown as these people that he is ostensibly fighting. And he, even though they win the battle, he doesn't feel like it's a victory. And I think that's the statement that he's really going into, or the sentiment that he's really following through with here.
Okay. So he wants to get the people to think that they're the same as the other peoples that the Academy is fighting or oppressing or so forth.
Yeah, that there's that it's really, the common folk versus the established power structures.
Okay. I kind of thought it was more individualistic. Like, Mauer himself was a victim of the Academy, and that has, solidified his resolve to fight them. And so, if he can get all these other people to be victims of the Academy, then they'll all be similarly resolved to fight against them as he is.
Maybe it's both.
Yeah.
It's probably both. It's always both.
Always both.
And a third answer that we haven't thought of.
Yes, usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we learn also that his plot is still not done. And it doesn't seem like he's significantly been set back.
Yeah, not at all. He's lost control of the crowd. But that doesn't seem to bother him that much.
It's like you win some, you lose some. This is still going.
Maybe he thinks that his cause is just so righteous and so clear that, even if the crowd doesn't take him seriously, they'll take the cause seriously regardless.
Yeah, remember the emotions that were attached to, the Academy attacking them rather than the emotion attached to, oh, this reverend is not on our side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't think that will really pan out the way he thinks it will. But he is a smart guy, so maybe he knows better than I do what the crowd is likely to do.
I mean, he talks about, or he thinks about how much he enjoys, I don't know if enjoys is the right word, but he likes communication and manipulating people, and neither of those are the words he uses. I don't remember what the phrase that he used was, but how some words have power and some have less power, and it's a something that comes up at least twice in his interlude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jenny, I saw you said something that I didn't hear.
I just said yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, you really missed out.
A lot. Yeah. No, just I don't know if your microphone is. I'm having trouble hearing you.
Son of a gun. Okay, let me see.
I can hear it just fine. I think
I can hear you fine.
Oh, maybe I was just holding it too far from my face.
Maybe just have it right there.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was, so probably wasn't that important.
That's all right. You can say it later if you want.
I'll say it later. We'll be talking about something different. We'll be like, oh, about Mauer.
I'm sure Mauer will come up again.
That's true.
I mean, that's kind of where it ends on the chapter. Like, this guy's going to pop up again, so...
Yep. Remember this guy.
We'll just give him a bit of a head start.
That's right.
Yeah.
In terms of other unrelated parts of the story...
Unrelated to Mauer or unrelated?
Unrelated to Mauer directly, we have Briggs. This whole thing with Briggs. Because, like, Briggs was the guy who was like, yes, let's just go and
murder the entire town. Yeah. We'll start over with a new town next time.
Like, okay, great.
And that's actually what he says about what he's going to do with the lambs. Because he's like, all right, well, you did a good job in taking care of this situation without nuking Mauer. So instead, I'm going to nuke you and see what happens.
Yeah, good job. Your reward is to get, like, torn down and broken.
I mean, that I think is... What the hell is that? I don't know. Upstairs neighbors dropping a ton of shit. Something. But yeah. Where was I? Okay, yeah. Just the fact that Briggs is perfectly okay with destroying the town and, like, killing everybody, and also using up the lambs. And, the lambs are ostensibly products of the Academy and tools to be used up. They're not people to Briggs. But the fact that he's also perfectly willing to use up the town shows that, like, there is, to the Academy and the people in charge of the Academy, no functional difference between the tools that they have and the people outside. They're all lesser, and they exist to serve the Academy and be used up by the Academy for the furtherance of the Academy's purposes.
What a complete and utter asshole, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, man, what a fucking dick.
Yep. Like, in those 80s biopunk movies, he's that, like, douchebag CEO who's like, whatever, like, let the robot murder all the people in the town, or, like, who cares if it kills one of the board members? They're just unimportant.
Just make all the put all the toxic waste from the company right into the beautiful flowing spring, and
exactly.
It's fine. Yeah,
it's not going to bother me.
Yeah. So what if they grow like a few extra arms? I'll probably help them in the long run.
That'll be extra arms
we can
harvest and graft onto the rich people.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
We'll graft their toes onto people.
I bet they do that. I bet they do that in Twig's universe somewhere. They're like, yeah, let's just put all this shit in the water supply, and we'll
see what comes out of it.
Yeah, if they grow extra limbs, then they'll have to come to us, and then we just get like extra limbs. Woo! Win-win.
We'll make stitched out of extra arms.
They do put like bacteria in the rain.
Yeah.
I think that's just to make it rain, but I think that's very much something that they would want to do if they could.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. But Briggs does approve badges and the other stuff as well.
Yeah, but who cares about the other stuff, right?
Yeah, the badges were
the badges are the only important.
Well, I like how Sai's like, we got badges. Can we get birds?
And Gordon's like, I will literally kill
about
you.
Badges. Badges are old news.
Yeah. Sai.
I want the new toy.
I want the new. Yeah. Like, what are you gonna do with the fucking bird, Sai? Like, what is I get the badges. I mean, I guess a bird could be useful, but like,
I mean, it is Sai. He would find a way to use it.
Yeah, you're right.
He's like, I will construct this entire situation around me being able to use this bird.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
This is going to be 10 times harder than it would have been without the bird, but I want this.
I want the bird. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to move on to the next bit.
So was I.
So they get this information about the expiration dates in this folder. And I think this is interesting how this is still like the primary connecting thread of this story.
Yeah. there are
it's like you have all of this sort of like epic, all these conspiracies, all this like epic um, uh, conflict between like the Academy and the Crown and the rebels and the who knows what, and yet the connecting thread is this very personal thing about like these kids and
when they die
and their connection to each other.
Yeah.
It's like why do they even need? I mean, I'm sure this is probably has an obvious answer that I'm just not thinking hard enough about. Maybe
control.
But like
to me,
yeah.
I assume this like expiration date means that if they run off, and also those appointments and whatnot, where they all get taken, if they run off, they die, and who cares because they're gone? Like it's not a big deal. And if they do well, whatever. We can just make new ones.
I kind of assume that the expiration date is less about like the project and more like less about the people, the kids, but more about like the funding. So it's like we've got like approved budget for 5 years to work on this project, and then after that, well, we're not going to pay for appointments for them anymore or whatever, and then they'll just fall apart.
I was wondering if it was more just like the like degradation of like their tissue, and like depending on what they're having done experiment wise, like this person had all this done, and so they're just not going to last longer than this.
Yeah, that's true.
Then next iteration might last longer. And
yeah, because don't they have that like with like if you're getting a replacement body part transplant sort of thing, it'll be like yes, this we'll expect it to last X number of years, and after that, like you need to do it again or something. So
I mean, it's like sometimes they can last a long time, and sometimes they don't. But yeah, you just have to get it.
Does it depend on like the body's immune response to it, or?
Yeah, generally. If you're, I mean, I don't know that much about like transplant medicine, but I know like if your body can have an immune reaction like relatively quickly, or even like you can get it placed, and then you could start noticing you're not feeling so well. Notice that your creatinine's elevated, like after a few months or something.
Okay.
But they also can last for years. I think I had a patient who had a kidney transplant that lasted like 20 years, which is kind of insane because like that's a really long time for that. But they can last. But I mean, a lot of times patients who get transplants are going to need another one. Just
sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Again, always both.
Don't know.
Probably a mix of all of those. Yeah.
And I guess the other really big plot point is the war, but we're going to talk about that later. Yeah.
So, in our world building section, which starts now.
Before we do that, do you mind if I run to the bathroom real quick?
Yes, sorry. You might. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, fine. I'll pee on the floor right here.
No, you're a father. You need to go when you can.
Yeah, you're editing. We'll just talk about you behind your back, and then you can listen to it while you're.
That's right.
Going
you can lead everything in. Like, what a small bladder! No, he probably didn't hear that. But... Oh my gosh, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's actually starting to get cold in Texas. Well, cold-ish. Colder.
Cold in Texas?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's starting. Well, you didn't hear about our big stupid freezes we've had like
the
past couple of years. Yeah. So our power grid. So most of the mainland United States, the power grid is like all connected, right? Texas is like, fuck that. We want to be able to be independent, and we're gonna do our own thing. And so, like, we had like a crazy winter a couple years back, which like we hadn't had like ever, or at least in a really long time.
Okay.
And like there was like, I don't know how there was a lot of snow, like the roads were like all iced over. The power grid could not handle all the heating, and so like it basically like hundreds, thousands of people like went without power during this like cold, and a lot of people died, and it just was really bad. And then and then we had another cold winter, and still wasn't very good. And apparently we're supposed to have a even colder winter than the first time this year. And I'm just like, oh man, I hope you guys actually fix the grid. Probably not, because Abbott, our governor, sucks.
Yeah.
He sucks so much. He's like a cartoonishly evil person, in my opinion.
Well, I lived in Florida. Left DeSantis. Yeah. Pretty equivalent, I'd say, in terms of...
Right. You're probably right.
Cartoonishly evil.
Cartoonishly evil. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, see, sometimes I think Ford is cartoonishly evil, and then I hear about these guys, and I'm like, no, he's not that bad.
Ford is also pretty cartoonish, though.
Yeah, Ford is just insane. Like, you just... Oh, what was it? Like, there was something where, like, if you type in... Oh, like your birthday... Like, just type in your birthday and then type Florida Man and then just see what comes up. Let me see. Mine's December 10th.
Florida Man, June 29th.
Okay, mine is Florida Man hold on, allegedly uses flamethrower in neighborhood parking dispute.
Mine is Florida Man robs Wendy's after grilling burger.
Okay, all right. Dante, what's yours?
Florida man bit victim in the face during a machete attack.
Wait, why is the biting in the face? Which one goes first? Like, which one's worse? Like, why not use his machete during a biting attack? Like,
oh, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Another, the second one is South Florida man accused of biting off head of pet python.
What the? See, yeah.
Apparently, my birthday is like Florida man biting people day.
I want to see if I have another one here. What is? Oh yeah, it's called the Florida Man Birthday. Oh, there's a website like dedicated to it. Apparently,
another. I mean, to be fair to Florida, all of this also happens in other places. Just Florida has reporting laws that don't hide them, don't protect them. So like all of this is just public access knowledge rather than in other places where it's kept secret.
So Florida Man isn't actually the worst superhero. He just has the worst publicist.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You're probably right, but I just don't believe it.
I mean, Florida also, when having lived there, I think the lack of seasons kind of has a weird effect on mental state. There's no change. There's no consequences. So people just go crazy because there's nothing that, there's no permanence to things.
Okay, so in the spirit of these sorts of things happen everywhere, I just looked up Ontario Man.
Come on, the Rideau McDonald's? That
Ontario Man has the longest zucchini in the world.
Okay, that's so much more wholesome.
Again, my caveat to that is the Rideau Street McDonald's,
which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it shut down because it was such a mess.
Is this like McDonald's basically like the Florida of Ontario?
Yes, it's like the Florida of Ontario spit into one shop.
McDonald's restaurant.
Yes. That sounds interesting. Is it like Waffle House?
It's kind of too bad they shut it down because now all that stuff needs to happen elsewhere.
Yeah,
it was so nicely contained before.
It was contained. You knew where to avoid or where to go to, I guess, depending on what you wanted your night to be like. And now you have to be surprised.
Yep. All right. Let's get back to this. So before we move on to world building, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about with the expiration dates, if y'all don't mind.
Fine.
Cool. I just thought it was really interesting the way it was structured in that Sai knew what was happening a long time before we did. We don't, Sai reads the things, reads the papers, reads the folder, and then there's however many paragraphs of stuff happening before we as the audience knows. And during that time, Sai is very much in a almost fugue state, like a brain fog, and he's not commenting or thinking about what's going on around him the same way that he does in every other chapter. And it's a really interesting way of sort of presenting that brain fog to us and as readers having us get in the same mental state as Sai.
I did really like that. It added, that brain fog, and also it was interesting seeing it from within his perspective. Because I feel like most of the time when you would when there would be a big event that the reader doesn't find out about that's affecting like one character, you tend to see it from like the outside,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
So, I mean, I really did like that.
Yeah. Like,
Mhm. I
especially,
did too.
Helen unsettling Mary normally would have had a whole, like, inner monologue, and there's, like, nothing to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they got away with so much during that last bit because he was
Yeah.
because he was just out of it.
Yeah, he was out of it. They're like, oh man, there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but also he got the information about the expiration dates way back at the beginning of arc 1.
Yeah, but the expiration dates, like, sort of matter, but don't seem to matter as much as him having potentially harmed, uh, I don't remember their names, but the having them brought back, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that actually means, like,
Mhm.
bringing them back. Like, is it, like, just, like, a second iteration of a similar project? Or, like, is it actually them?
We'll pull them out of Cairo
Yeah, that, like,
or Cryo.
cryo, yeah. Like, what does that mean? Like, is it actually them, or is it, like, here's another kid who is now what Yvette was supposed to be, or
Yeah,
Ashton was supposed to be? And does that distinction matter to Sai, since I don't think he ever met either of them?
Yeah, because he was brought on to replace them, wasn't he?
If I remember correctly,
So,
yeah.
mhm.
And that itself might be part of why Sai's perturbed too. Like, if they're bringing back the people that he was meant to replace, where does that leave him?
maybe. I didn't read it like that myself, but
I
that
didn't, honestly, until I said it right there about it. Like, that was just like, I don't think it's a, like, necessarily, like, fear,
Mhm.
but who knows?
It could be
Mhm.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I think he. I think that he thinks that he is so intrinsic to this group of kids
Yeah,
that even if they brought back the previous
right.
iterations of his project, he'd be fine, or
Yes,
he'd find a way to make it fine.
within the Lambs, yes, but to Hale, to Briggs,
Yeah, maybe
like, in theory, redundant.
Hmm.
Or
he would plot out a way to make it work.
Oh yeah.
He'd be like, "All right, I need to get my hands on those birds so that I can make Hale pay for my continued operation in this group."
yeah, yeah.
Shall we go on to world building, man?
Let's go on to world building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was some of the technology here.
Motorized needles.
Motorized needles.
So
Yeah.
yeah, Sai says he hates needles, which I totally agree with.
Hmm.
When I was very young, they used to, like, 7 or 8, I had a phobia of needles. They used to have to, like, have the nurses hold me down for, like, blood tests and
Oh
stuff. It was
yeah.
horrible. But Sai specifically says a motorized, like, he's like, I hate all needles, even motorized ones. It's like, a motorized needle, does that sound, like,
Does that
better?
sound better?
Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like,
Like,
that sounds
doesn't.
worse to me.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, makes me think of like a tattoo gun, but
Mhm.
like just saying a
Yeah, I
motorized.
assume that's what it's going for. It could be something else, but that's my thought too.
Yeah. Which people who have a lot of tattoos always have the hardest time with needles.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like the really big buff guys with like all the tattoos all over. They're gonna be the biggest babies.
Oh.
The I mean, almost every time. Like it's just like almost like almost every patient I've had, it's like, oh, you've had tattoos, this should be fine, and they like flinch and complain about stuff the most. And I don't have any tattoos, so I don't know. But I'm like, see, it seems like sitting in a chair getting poked over and over, like with I don't know. It just seems like that would be
Yeah,
painful, but I don't
agreed.
know. Yeah.
Maybe they're
And
like the tattoo gun, like we're used to it. We expect it to feel like that. And it feels different, and that's why we're upset.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like the like the gauge of the needle, or like
Maybe
maybe
we
it's
should use
maybe.
motorized needles on them, and they would be much happier about it.
maybe.
Well, also the fact that it's called a woodpecker makes me, like,
Yeah, like what the fuck?
that sounds awful.
It's
I thought it was
like,
cute.
well,
No,
I mean,
it's
it
this, like,
sounds.
thing, like, tuck, 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 tuck into your skin.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
mm-mm.
No.
mean, it does have like anesthesia on it, so
Yeah, that is true.
Like I'm curious. This is just random thoughts that are going through my head. I told you guys I just say
Yeah,
things.
no, that's great.
So I'm like, yeah, first of all, like, okay, there's anesthesia on the needles themselves. Like, do they give lidocaine or some kind of local anesthetic beforehand before this? If not, I guess
It's all
that's
part and
fine.
parcel of the same injection.
What was
Over
that?
and over.
But I'm just like, okay, how fast? It seems like it like goes in and out and in and out. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like a lot of time for the medication to actually get in. And like, how is it getting in? Like someone's pushing the plunger. Is that part of the motorized part? Like the plunger being pushed in? What size is the needle? Is it long? Is it short? I mean, it doesn't matter because it's going to feel the same, even though people think it doesn't. Like, people always get scared by the really long ones, and I'm like, I promise you, it's gonna feel the same. It's gonna feel the same. Like, if they hit a nerve or something, that sucks. But like, you can hit a nerve with a shorter needle and a longer needle, you know.
Mhm.
But it's just like, what kind of medication is going through? Is it thick? Is it thin? Again, if it's going in and out, how are you getting any medication in? Sorry, I'm just like, I don't understand. It's so
Well, I'm sure the
future.
Academy has done a lot of peer-reviewed studies. They have a lot of statisticians on staff.
You're right.
They've-
They know what they're doing. They this obviously works. I just, can't wrap my puny little
non-academia brain.
yeah, I can't wrap
Maybe it's
my head.
like one of those like quill pens where you like dip it in the ink and then write it on the paper. So they like take it like stabs into your body, stabs into the medicine, stabs into the body, stabs into the
Interesting.
medicine.
So it's like such potent medicine they only have to do little bits. But then like that doesn't seem like that would be very accurate. Well, I mean, I guess it could be. Like in
Wasn't it
terms of the
specifically?
dosing.
No. It was. I was going to say. I thought it was specifically to treat the bruising, but no, it's going to leave bruising, which makes sense.
That does make
Mhm.
sense.
If it's poking. Yeah.
I poked a lot of people today, guys.
Yeah. For fun or for work?
This was for her podcast.
Yeah, no. No, it was for work.
Oh wait, which definition of poke are we going here?
With needles. I started a lot of IVs today. 'Cause I'm on the IV team.
Fun.
It's a lot more fun to poke people than it is to be poked, I'll tell you that.
I believe that.
I mean, and fun's not really the right word. I don't like causing people pain, but it's satisfying if you can get one and they're like a hard stick, because then they're actually like, oh my gosh, you got it in one try.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you. You're amazing. I'm like, I'm amazing.
Definitely seen people doing it and like missing the vein, and it's like,
Yeah.
like, oh my god, you've poked me like 7 times. Like, just
Yes.
get it in there.
See, like, I get to cheat because I get a ultrasound machine. So
Oh.
so on our team, yeah, we get an ultrasound, so we get to go. It's a little bit of a different skill set. It takes a bit of practice to use, but I mean, it's like for
Once you're there, it's
I mean, not everyone has all the veins anyway.
really
Like, yes, well, some people are really, really sick, or just certain medications they take, or if someone's been poked over and over and over and over, like their veins, they just get really bad access. Like a lot of times they'll like clot off, or
okay.
like they'll just be really tiny. And like it'll have enough for like blood flow to get to like where it needs to go, but it won't be like large vessels that you can hit.
Is that like a defense mechanism?
I believe so. I mean, I've never actually talked to someone about it, but
Okay.
yeah, your body, like, I mean, it doesn't like getting stuck with needles.
Weird.
So it's like,
Sure.
if you poke someone's vein, a lot of times, like,
The vein's gonna be like, I'm gonna leave.
kind of, actually. Like, even like in the short term, like if you poke someone's vein and like it gets irritated, it'll, what we call vasospasm, so it'll kind of like shrink.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, or like it'll even, yeah, so it's like if you poke someone and they're like really prone to that, like if you don't get it in like right away, their vein might shrink up, or it might even like move kind of to a different spot, and it's a lot harder. Like,
creepy.
yeah. But it's like, so I think it is a defense mechanism, because your body's like, what the
Well, if it happens that fast, like where does the blood go? It's like,
well, I mean, it's still like your veins still open, so like the blood's still going through, but it's just too small for you to like hit with a needle. It'll relax back open later.
Sure.
But I mean, if you're getting chronically poked over and over and over, I mean, I think like blood just goes through like capillaries and like really small little vessels, or like your vessels just get really tiny and you can't hit it.
Life finds a way.
Yeah. And then if that happens, that like to where we can't get anything, then they have to do like what we call a tunneled line. This might be too much information.
Never. I mean, we're on a bio.
Yeah, that's true. This is the perfect place for me to talk about this crap. But, like, if you can't find any vasculature in like your upper extremities to get any kind of line in, and the patient needs access for medication and things, we could do a tunnel line or even a non-tunnel line, but like tunneled is probably better. That basically.
What does that mean?
So, like, let me just. Okay, so you would do like a central line, which central line just means that it goes into like your torso, which is like the center. Most of the time goes like right above the heart or even into the heart. And so it's really good for certain types of medication that can be really hard on your veins.
Okay.
Like chemo, or if you're getting long-term antibiotics, or certain like what we call vasoactive medications like Levophed, which kind of helps you regulate your blood pressure, like different, or like TPN, which is like nutrition that's going straight into your veins, stuff like that. You don't want to put straight into like a peripheral, like an arm vein, because it's gonna like eat that shit up. Okay, if it's going right like like into like the big vessel, like by your heart, it dilutes much quicker into your bloodstream, so it's not going to hurt like, you know.
And so what about the big fuck off needles that they use for like epidurals and stuff? Is that?
I mean, I don't like in terms of like being okay. Wait, big fuck off needles for epidurals and stuff.
Well, it looked like a really big needle when.
Like, or what is your question in relation to?
I mean, like, I guess like how does that relate to what you're talking about here in terms of like? So that's so epidural is localized anesthetic, right? Is it, or is it like? I guess I don't know what I'm asking.
That's fair. So I guess like when I say local anesthetic, I think of like subcutaneous, or like like a numbing medicine that's like injected like right into your
Novocaine
skin.
for like teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like lidocaine or Novocaine, they feel like the same. They're just like and really it burns and then it goes numb, which is really annoying because it hurts. Like for your epidural, I mean, I'm trying to remember if I've seen it. I mean, I've had an epidural placed, but I don't remember seeing
But you weren't looking at that.
No, it
goes right into the back. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen lumbar punctures, but those are very small needles. I mean, they're long, but like we call them spinal needles because they're long, but they're like somewhat like small around. Yeah, that's not really related to a tunneled line, but but they both do have needles. So just to like so that I finish that thought. So like a central line. They're most likely they're most likely going to most of the lines that our doctors place, at least, they'll go into like the internal jugular vein, which is in your neck. And so you don't want to leave a line sticking out of the neck if you can help it. I mean, you can, but it's just really hard. It's kind of uncomfortable, hard to dress, right?
Okay.
So what they do is they numb up this area like on your chest, get like this metal rod and tunnel it, like forcibly like tunnel it under the skin, and so that it comes out like on your chest. And so the catheter is basically like goes like in your chest here, goes through a tunnel to that access point in the IJ, and then goes back down into
that sounds awful.
It sounds worse than it is.
I mean, very hard.
Just gotten used to it.
So the patient like I mean, if you were gonna see it happen to yourself, I think it would like be really kind of like
Awful.
what the heck. But I mean, the worst part really is like the numbing medicine most of the time.
Okay.
Because after that, they might feel a little bit like
Pulling,
pressure, a
yeah.
little pulling, but they don't have like pain.
Sure.
Some of like the bigger catheters, like for dialysis, which is like a 14 French, and that's like a hose basically, will like put you just, we'll give you sedation medication for that. But like a PICC line, it's pretty small, so you don't really need it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember why I went into all that.
Because of the mechanical needles. Or the motorized needles.
The motorized needles, yeah. Yeah.
So imagine having to use like one of these motorized needles for something like that. Like
I don't even know how you. Well,
like a tattoo gun.
But like
you have to shove a catheter through someone's torso with a tattoo gun. Go.
Wait, but that does that makes no sense. The only thing that the tattoo gun could be useful for is doing the lidocaine, I think.
Yeah.
Doing the numbing. Like for getting access to the IJ, so you put the needle. Then again, this might be more information than you need, but because I place PICC lines as well, but I don't do the tunnel ones because I guess I'm a nurse and we don't do that. We do the peripheral ones. But you get access with your needle, and then you actually, I don't know if this is going to sound squeamish or whatever, but you put a wire down just to hold it in place. Take the needle out over it, so it leaves the wire. Then you put some like dilators to open the area up a bit. Put a sheath in place, which is just like it's just like I don't know, it's a sheath. And then you take out the smaller wire, put down a longer wire, use X-ray to like get the right spot.
So this is what I'm hearing. You put the little needle in, then you put a bigger needle over it, and then you put a bigger needle over that, and then a bigger one over that.
So okay, so those other ones aren't needles.
Sure.
But I mean, I know what you're saying. They're not actually sharp. They're like
also they blunt force their way through.
I mean, your skin's elastic. It kind of stretches, and if it doesn't go through, man, everything I say sounds worse than it is. Like they make a little skin nick. They like use a little blade to make a little nick. Just
honestly,
to help
skin nick sounded far less offensive than like so much else you've said so far.
Oh my gosh!
That sounds downright pleasant compared to.
I mean, fair, but that's like because my department's it's really nice because we're very we don't slice anybody open or anything. We just poke people and then so it's pretty quick healing for things and you just poke people. We use a lot of wires. Like I was talking to Elliot.
Like stitched.
And what was that?
Like stitched. A lot of wires.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe even more wires. We have a lot of wires. Like I was talking to Elliot, and I might end up trying to do this for one of our end of podcast thing. But like a lot of our wires are named. You can tell they're named by some guy that just wants to relive his glory days,
Okay, in what way?
I don't know if I could tell you because then okay, let me think.
You can't leave us hanging like this.
Yeah. Well, if you don't tell me, I'll ask my mom. She's a statistician for Becton Dickinson, the BD.
Oh, okay. So okay.
They make all the equipment that you're talking about.
Everything. Awesome. Yeah. So ask her who comes up with the names because I'm like it's some dudes that are sitting in the boardroom and are like, yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think of one that I can use that isn't gonna spoil the game thing because I was thinking I could get a bunch of names and be like, is this I don't know, is this the name of some medical equipment, or is this I don't know, a Wild Bow character? Or
that sounds amazing.
So is this for All Packed Up 2.0 when you're done with the?
Oh, we're not doing a live stream I'm not
saying I guess
2.1.
Well, no, because All Packed Up was 1.1 and All Packed Up 2 is for Pale. So this is for Packed. So it would be.
This is for Poke or for Packed and Poke and all. Look, it's still all poked up. That's a good one.
You heard it here first, folks. Jenny is committing to
72-hour
no,
live
I'm not.
stream.
I am not. I am absolutely not. I have to sleep. I have children. I have to keep what remains of my sanity.
As if Elliot and Ruben don't need to sleep also.
I mean, they definitely do, but that's their choice to be absolutely insane. Okay, let me think. I'm sorry. I'm
no
just
poke themed tattoo for you if they get enough.
No poked themed. No, although I have thought about some. I have thought about like 1 or 2 packed themed tattoos that I might be willing to do. That'd be pretty cool. But I mean, no. I mean, poke.
I know.
Why? like oh yeah, yeah. No, there's nothing I'd want to get on my body forever from that story. Like no. Okay, if I tell you guys a name of something, can you bleep it out? Or is that just that might be mean to everybody listening?
No, we'll do it. Let's do it.
You'll do it. Okay.
If I figure out how to bleep things, I'm sure I'll just put a sound over it or something. Silence you and then put a sound over it.
I'll try to think of.
We'll just make up something random. Like, name of something completely unrelated.
Florgle Blaster. There you go.
There you go.
Put that in there.
Save that and then use that.
Okay, like there's like a is it a wire? It's a wire. It's called like Florgle Blaster. You know, or like I don't know. It's just like who would name their wire Florgle Blaster? Or like there's one that's Florgle Blaster. Like
so some guy with like cars. Like this is
but
cool
then
stuff.
But then there's also one called Florgle Blaster. You know, it's just like they just going like, okay, I don't know, like the names are all kind of like that.
I have to say, there's a lot of
kind of amazing
weird implications of like calling the wire that you're shoving through someone's body
Florgle Blaster. Yes, you have to bleep that out too. So it's going to be Florgle Blaster. Florgle Blaster, right? Okay.
Yep.
You got to do it because like, I mean, because that in particular, that's like a Wild Boar character name and a balloon.
Wire.
Yeah, I know.
Or
it's
a
like
balloon, or
yeah. I know it is a balloon, but it's a balloon on a wire, which is kind of which is like it's not like a big balloon. It's a balloon used to like widen up vessels. It's a little balloon.
A tiny balloon.
It's a very tiny balloon. They have different sizes, and they go in and you have to blow it up with a little. Anyway,
so this leads us perfectly into our next section, where we talk about the hedge.
That was so good.
The hedge, known for its tiny balloons.
For the tiny balloons.
Yeah. So, as a reminder to everyone, the hedge is the wall of the academy, the skin, and also the place where people go for treatment. The public goes for treatment because I'm assuming people with money don't go to the hedge for treatment. They get bespoke treatment.
Or as we're getting more and more convinced, the hedge is the place where they go to be secretly experimented on.
Yes. So that there's a lot to say, I think, about the existence of the hedge. First, the fact that the doctors there are referred to as hedge doctors, which, like, on the surface feels very normal. Sure, the place they work at is called the hedge, and they are doctors, therefore they are hedge doctors. But, like, a hedge something I'm not sure if this is a historical term or more like a fiction fantasy term, but hedge something is usually like a hedge knight or a hedge witch, are people who have nominal power, but who are kind of like outside of the traditional power structures, and don't necessarily have any kind of like formal education, and they have like minimal oversights. They're kind of roaming around doing what they do without anybody really being able to tell them otherwise. They have power over the people that they like operate on and work with or work on, but they don't necessarily have anybody like they're a hedge. They're outside of the normal feudal structure that a knight would be operating in, or just sort of like communal structure that like a witch would be in theory connected to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're real sketchy.
Yeah, exactly. They're sketchy
Yes,
doctors.
they're sketchy doctors.
So it
Sketchy
feels
doctors.
weird that they're like part of the institution here, and it kind of doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, which is kind of a contrast to the character of the one hedge doctor that we actually see, who seemed like a decent kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that was necessarily deliberate. Like, I mean, it could have been very much, but like, just like referring to a doctor who works at the hedge as a hedge doctor doesn't necessarily an intentional play on words.
No,
but
it's such a common term, like a
Yeah.
hedge witch or a hedge doctor. I'd find it very hard to believe that
mhm.
Wildbow kind of just like, whatever
Yeah.
to that.
And I
And
do
even-
think that naming this hospital the Hedge is related to that kind of idea.
Yeah, and I guess like it kind of leads into like the other thing to say that I don't imagine like if Hale's department is a dead end, I kind of feel like the hedge is the place where either people who are too idealistic or too incompetent to really make it in the academy proper
Mhm.
are sent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like-
because you're too sketchy to make it as a real
Or-
doctor. So
or you're too caring to make it as like an academy doctor. I guess you'll go there where you'll stagnate and never accomplish anything but treat.
do you know why a sketchy professional who's not part of the institution is called a hedge something?
Because they sleep under hedges.
Yep.
Is that it?
That's pretty much, well, not, yeah, sort of. It's because vagabonds would like hide out in the hedges.
Okay.
And so there was this sort of association of like, oh, well, like, you know.
Well, it's shelter, right? If you don't have
Mhm.
better shelter,
Yeah.
like it's got thick leaves and nice branches, and it's probably above a ditch, so you're not going to get wet.
Yeah. So instead of being in
Yeah.
a nice house and a nice office or whatever passed for an office back in the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
you're working out of a ditch and living in a hedge. And
You know, it's not the worst place.
It is better than a ditch.
It's better
Like,
than
it
like
could
an
be a ditch
open.
witch, and that'd be so much worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure someone has written a story about ditch witches.
About a
but
ditch witch.
that sounds kind of awesome.
Off
actually.
to Google we go. Ditch witch
Ditch witch.
is apparently a company, a trade name of Charles Machine Works, American brand of an underground utility construction equipment, principally trenchers,
Boring.
which has been in operation since 1949. What a disappointing
Hey.
answer here.
Oh, there
Well,
is
it's worth
a
try.
company called Hedge Doctor that is a hedge trimming company. So, so just because some company has taken the awesome name doesn't mean that there isn't awesome
Yeah.
stuff there too.
Though
It's true.
Ditch Witch's logo is kind of really cool.
Do tell.
Hmm.
Well, sure. It's a crescent moon with a witch on a broomstick. An orange moon with the black silhouette of a witch on a broomstick. Which I don't know why it's associated with trenchers and digging equipment, but it's a pretty cool logo.
Okay.
I feel like I want to look at this logo more closely. See if I see anything. Logo.
Are you looking at it?
Yes. Oh, look, okay, it's not just a witch. Like her
No?
broom. Well, it is a witch, but
Oh,
her
it's a
broom is
shovel.
a shovel.
She's riding a
Oh,
shovel.
nice.
Cool.
There you go. That makes it all.
It makes it a little bit better.
Makes it
Right.
a lot better.
You're welcome, Ditch Witch, for some free advertising.
There you go. Feel free to send us some shovels or whatever.
Or a Ditch Witch.
Or a ditch witch. Yeah.
This episode is not sponsored by.
I feel like we took a really long time to get there, but we did drop name.
After a message from our sponsor.
Sponsored by Ditch Witch and Hedge Doctor.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to the hedge, I kind of do wonder how much traffic it actually gets, because we hear how like bad the reputation of the academy is in town. And like it feels weird that people be like, yeah, that place is real sketch and like they make monsters, but I'm going to go over there to get my broken arm treated. Like, I don't know how to reconcile that disconnect very much. Like, I feel like if you're going to the hedge to be treated, there's some real desperation involved.
I don't think it is that much desperation. I think it's like, the academy is kind of like this big scary thing, but they do fix your arm where no one else will, and I've got a broken arm, so I guess that's where we're going.
And if I go in there and don't come out, and
such is life.
Death.
This is just life in this town. People disappear.
They lock their doors because there's like venomous cat snakes, and also I'll go to the people who make the venomous cat snakes to like get a root canal.
Yeah.
I wonder if the academy, I wonder if there's head psychologists or like therapists, because I feel like people around this place need some therapy.
Well, therapy involves replacing your brain with a slug that thinks it's you.
Oh man, you can't catch a break in this place. I mean, yeah, I don't want a brain slug. That's like reminds me of Animorphs.
Yeah.
What is it? Yerks?
Yerks?
Dante, do you know what we're talking about or no?
Yerks. I've never read any Animorphs.
What? Oh my gosh.
Which is weird because I was in like the generation where it was super popular.
Yeah.
And everyone was reading them, and I was reading a lot of things, but I never read any Animorphs, so I don't know what happened there.
You need to put that on your book list.
Do I? Is it worth going back to?
I don't know if it's worth going back to. I don't remember it well enough, but I remember
it's very long. I haven't.
That's the thing, yeah.
I never finished it, but it's like you could buy. It's like you could go to the Scholastic Book Fair and you could buy a few of them, and it's not going to like hurt to read it out of order. But
when you outgrew, what was it, the Magic Treehouse? There was Goosebumps, and then after Goosebumps, there's Animorphs.
That's right. It's like there's an alien race that's like taking over Earth, kind of in secret. And, like these kids like get this like power to morph into animals, and
from another alien
who's dying. I figured
that part from the covers.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like the aliens, they like are basically like these slug things that they crawl into like your ear, and they kind of control your mind, and or like they can. I think you're probably still like present, but like they control everything you do and what you say. And
okay,
yeah,
and then you can fight them by turning into a hawk or a ant or whatever.
I remember one Animorphs where they turned into flies and went into a McDonald's where I guess like the because there was like supposed to be a secret, like an entrance to a secret like Yerk base or whatever, and I remember like the password was like to order a Happy Meal with extra happy. And yeah, I don't know why I remember that, but it always made me want to go to McDonald's and just try it out, to see if they're legit.
You should do that just to see what happens.
Just to see. I mean, please,
well, then you end up with a brain parasite.
That's right. I mean, either from
McDonald's or from
from.
Well, as we discussed before, the McDonald's that would have brain slugs in it got closed down.
That is true.
That's true.
From the raccoon?
Yes, the raccoon ate all the slugs.
Alright, so the other big location in these two chapters is the battlefield, which I think we'll talk about a bit later. I don't think we need to talk about it here, unless there's something specifically either of you want to call out.
I mean, we're going to talk about the war under the historical references bit.
Yeah.
But the battlefield location itself, I didn't have anything worth saying about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It was a battlefield.
Well, it was a trench warfare battlefield, with all that implies.
Yeah, but you can dig trenches anywhere.
Yeah, but it has a very specific
vibe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you win. It is worth talking about, so we'll talk about it later.
You're the one who typed it into the notes.
I typed into the notes that it was like important enough to the story that we should acknowledge its existence, and that's it.
There was a battlefield there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot more sense than if there was a war in a Denny's.
I suppose so.
Like, I mean, I told you, I just think of the first things that pop into my head. Yeah, a Denny's would not fit into the story.
That is correct. That is also true. Now, a Waffle House, on the other hand.
Yeah, that would fit perfectly. Waffle House is just all sorts of jacked up. It's like Waffle Houses sounds like that McDonald's that closed down that y'all were talking about.
Okay.
I love how a Waffle House in the southern United States is used as a good barometer of like hurricane recovery. Because it's one of the
Yes.
first places that will reopen after a hurricane.
Mhm.
And like that's by design. Like they'll deliberately like put a lot of effort and work into reopening so that they are like that. I don't know if I want to call them the center of community because that sounds like a horrible thing, but like yeah, like as one of those like places that first responders are able to go to and
Mhm.
get hot food and whatnot.
I believe it's also a barometer of like how bad a storm actually is, because if
How long it takes them.
well, yeah, like if if it's bad enough to where like the Waffle Houses actually are closing, then it's a pretty
Yeah.
bad storm. I think that might have been a fact on one of my episodes.
Oh, was it?
It might have been, or I talked about it on one of my episodes at
Okay.
least. I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is something I learned when I lived in Florida and could definitely have showed up in one of your episodes, though.
I talk about a lot of stuff.
I heard it recently on a different unrelated podcast that was doing random facts. So
Awesome.
3 beat.
Yes.
There you go. The most powerful of beats.
The Waffle House beat. I don't know.
This podcast also not sponsored by Waffle House.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you all want to talk about? The hedge or the battlefield or the Lamb's Ridge Orphanage or the Waffle House?
No.
Let's move on to the
Monster Corner.
Ooh, the spookiest corner.
I'm going to take that little bit of audio and it's going to play into every single episode from now on.
Oh, man. All right. Well, you can do it. You have my permission.
Yes.
All right. So the first set of monsters that we should talk about are the lambs themselves.
Yes.
Yes, because with all this stuff about their expiry dates and their whatever, this is the monster side of them.
Yeah.
And we don't get exact dates, but we do get sort of the order of things. He says that Gordon is going to expire first, Jamie a year later, Helen second last, and Cy outlives them all.
And I'm curious about that because I'm curious, first, it seems odd that Ibbett would have created a project with an expiration date.
Yeah.
Just based on like what we know of his ego and whatnot, it feels like he's like, oh, this thing that I am creating will be a perfect human that is also a perfect monster weapon tool thing.
This thing that I am creating will outlive the perfect Gordon, and therefore I am the best. And that's all he cares about.
Yeah, maybe. Like it feels weird that though I guess if he builds super weapons, it makes sense for him to intrinsically have an expiration date on those. Like you don't want your...
Sure. Helen is designed to explode when she turns 16 and take out the entire town with her.
Potentially.
I mean, I could, yeah. Can see it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also just kind of interesting that Cy outlives them all when he's like getting poison. Like,
I kind of assume it's just because he's the youngest. Is he the youngest? I kind of assume that he's the youngest.
I get the vibe he's the youngest, but it might also be because he's the last addition.
And
he might be a different kind of project than the others, since we know he was like... Wait, do we know this, or is this me like falsely remembering that he is a fabricated set of not memories of personality traits and skills and attributes on top of like the lobotomized brain of a child?
I think you made that up, but it might also be true.
I can't remember what was my own interpretation and theory and what was...
No, I remember you had this idea that he was just like mind wiped and then implanted with a whole new thing, but I think it was not like entirely untrue, or at least entirely implausible. It's just like your theory was a lot more specific than I think we learned.
This is one of the problems of doing this kind of podcast, and reading it, reading every 2 to 3 weeks, kind of lose some of the specifics and lose track of what's an actual memory of the text and what's like the interpretation thereof.
Yeah, that's fair. Did we sorry, since I read ahead, did we not go over what kind of project they necessarily are yet?
I mean, there's a little bit of that, but I don't know what your specifics.
Like we went through the list of names, like the
Wyvern and
But
Griffin.
we don't know why.
We don't know
They exist,
necessarily
no.
what those projects are designed to do, aside from the obvious.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're
sorry.
dangling some tantalizing bait in front of us here.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm glad I didn't go into it too much, but I'm just saying, based on what the type of projects that Sai is or what they do, it's surprising that he dies,
Okay.
at the end,
Well,
after everyone else to me.
I do want to note, you say die there.
I don't know. I just say, the part where I got to,
yeah.
I do not know if he actually, I meant to expire. I don't know if it's referring to death or expiration, honestly.
Jamie, I think Sai specifically comments, he doesn't die, but he expires. And what's the distinction there? So just as Dante said earlier, you run out of funding and we're going to move on to a better version? Or is that when whatever augmentations were implanted into you as a child, those run out and you as a person continue? I don't know what the distinction is between die and expire here.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it could just be kind of a polite way to say die.
No, because it does say he wouldn't die, but he would expire.
Oh, got it.
It's very explicit that there's a distinction between the two, which
that's odd.
Yeah.
Maybe he would just be vegetative.
Potentially, also, the body keeps going, but there's no animus.
Interesting.
Maybe he would melt into a sentient puddle.
That would be wild. Coming back to the witch type of conversation, I think yeah. Which I can't even remember why we were talking about witches, but I feel
hedge witches.
Hedge witches. That's right. Maybe Jamie's the real hedge witch all along.
Aha.
He melts into a
wonder if there's a form of practice in the other verse. It's hedge witches, hedge practice. Sort of shitty version of a sorcerer.
It sounds probable.
Sounds like the sort of thing that probably is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone's thought of it, it's a thing.
Yeah. I think they would probably resent the description shitty version of a sorcerer. But yeah.
A jack of all trades, good at everything, master of none.
Master of none.
All right, so the next monster.
Hold up.
Okay, fine. Sorry.
There is a hedge witch mentioned in Pale somewhere.
Oh, well.
That does sound familiar, actually.
Yes.
Details?
Well, first let me figure out whether it's a spoiler.
Pale spoilers for anybody listening, potentially.
So, in Summer Break 13.2, when Lucy performs the Alcazar ritual on the Carmine Beast, we follow the story of Edward Lehman and Henrietta Belton, a practitioner and a hedge witch. Lucy is shown different potential outcomes she can choose and their consequences. She sees what will happen. Oh, yes, because Lucy, when she's doing this Alcazar, she kind of takes that role of the Carmine, and one of the judgments she makes as the Carmine is over this hedge witch.
That's right.
Situation.
Is there any detail about the practice of a hedge witch?
Or
it might be some form of aware, since there's a distinction between a practitioner and a hedge witch.
It says, this is from the wiki, she is knowledgeable about herbs and can use them for healing. She can create drugs that turn people into monsters, and made a drug that turned herself into a confident, assertive, and promiscuous version of herself, named Arietta.
So, a less formalized alchemist?
Mm-hmm. Now, I think that there's a thing with hedge witches and hedge magic, where in the sort of medieval sense of the word, a hedge witch or a hedge lawyer or whatever would be the sort of sketchy, quack doctor sort of thing.
Yeah, vagabond.
Whatever. But sometimes I think in fantasy you see hedge witches where it's more about being garden based and botanical based.
Yeah, that also makes sense.
And doing a lot of stuff with plants and botany and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. Because I'm pretty sure that I've read a couple books where there are hedge witches that are like literally just like established witches who like grow stuff in their garden and do stuff that way.
Sure.
So could be that that's what's going on here.
Presumably learned from like their grandmother rather than wizard school or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So anyway, very important character, Henrietta Belton, the hedge witch.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So back to the monster corner.
Monster corner. Yes. I told you guys this would happen, so I appreciate you.
Well, I mean, it's us also.
That's fair.
We do the same
Oh, yeah.
kind of thing in ours.
We do the same thing. We just do it better now that you're here with us.
Aw, thank you.
You're so good at leading people astray.
Thank you so much. I'll take that as the compliment that I'm sure it was intended to be.
So our next monster is the messenger birds.
Which, pretty self-explanatory. Just seem like...
I mean, I think it's interesting that messenger birds are considered a monster because obviously in the context of Twig, they are monsters because otherwise they wouldn't have them. But messenger birds are pretty normal.
Well, these are specifically birds which are attuned to a specific monster's pheromones, which, as far as I know, a carrier pigeon cannot identify their messenger recipient by pheromone. Unless carrier pigeons are very different than I understood them to be.
That's true.
Okay, that's fair. So slightly monstrous carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
Monster.
I wonder if they are like modified carrier pigeons or if they're like some sort of like giant eagle raptor type thing that
can't be that giant considering she was carrying 3 of them.
Tiny eagle raptor type thing.
Yes.
They genetically engineered them to weigh like nothing.
Oh, they got hollow bones, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
They're like those balloons we were talking about earlier, just teeny tiny.
I did picture them as birds of prey. I don't know why.
They might be.
I mean, I just assumed that the Academy is the sort of place where they would make everything predatory just for fun.
Yeah, I mean...
It's not for fun. It's for practicality reason. If we can send these out and they can feed themselves on the trip, then that's less money and upkeep for the customer.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how they sold it.
Yep.
Uh-huh. It's like when scientists are like, we're doing some interesting science, and also this could potentially cure cancer eventually, and therefore they'll get more funding.
Yep.
Yes.
So then it's the same thing here. It's like, these are predatory, so they can also be used as weapons in the war, and then they get all the funding.
And they get all the funding, and everything's fine.
Yep.
I thought the ships and the war beasts were super cool.
Oh my gosh! What a trip, right? Yeah, that was cool. That was wild.
These like hybrid metal, and then like the engines are like a living beast, like grafted onto the ship.
Oh my gosh, which must be torturous.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it just sounds like. Well,
I wonder if it's even sentient or just.
Well, I mean, you want it to be sentient so it knows how to steer the ship, obviously.
Well, is it steering or just powering?
I'm sure that's how they sold it.
Because like engines can power a ship and they're not sentient, so
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but then you can cut a lot of costs if you can tell the ship itself where to go, and
but
the ship does it on its own.
Do they have to sleep?
They do like dolphins, sleep half their brain at a time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Have you guys ever read the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb?
Nope.
It is very good. It's part of a series, which is very good.
A trilogy?
Yeah, it is the second trilogy in the series.
Okay.
But yeah, it's more medieval, like tall ships, wooden planking sort of thing, and the ship is alive and sentient and so forth. But this kind of reminded me of that.
That's
in a
cool.
sort of like weird, modern, horrible, twisted sort of way. And then it opens up and lets out this giant Oliphant type thing. And
Woo!
That spews parasitic mustard gas.
I almost feel like, what's the point of having the giant monster if it's all it's there to do is disperse gas?
Presentation.
Yes. Ooh, everybody look at this presentation we're making because you will not survive to pass it along to anyone.
It's showmanship. If you're going to conduct your war, might as well be dramatic about it.
Yeah. I guess I don't know, like, if I just feel like if I got, like, infected with the super plague, that I know I couldn't go see my family again because I was gonna kill him. I don't know if my first instinct would be like, I'm gonna try to die immediately in a war and kill people. Maybe I would, but just some, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's for, like, you're this person fighting them.
Mhm.
You get infected with this gas.
Mhm.
You give up on life immediately because you know everything's over for you.
Yeah.
And there's this convenient, gigantic monster that you can just throw yourself under its feet.
That's true. I guess you can also, like, take out your anger on the other side.
The ones responsible for what you're going through, I guess.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right.
Or maybe it is just like a gigantic balloon full of gas, and that's just the size of it, and the rest is just to
Get
keep
the
it from
balloon of
popping.
gas to where you need it to go.
Yes.
Potentially, that makes sense. I mean, the Academy and the Crown, whatever, does seem like the kind of people who would engineer like these like one-time use giant creature weapon things. Like whatever, they're dead, they're gone, they've been used up.
Yep.
We got more of them.
We got more of them.
Which I mean is basically their entire approach to like the war itself, right? Just like, oh, we got more stitched, we got more people, it's fine. Just
Yeah. Everything
Yeah.
is
Although they do end up losing this particular battle due to a lack of resources, which
yeah,
was kind of surprising. It's like, why are you cutting back on these very cheap and mass-produced war machines that you have? Anyway,
I mean, we're going to talk about the war
we can get
in a
into that
bit.
later.
Yeah,
Yes.
For now, we want to talk about
Gorger.
Gorger.
Now, I thought it was interesting that we only got like a couple of sentences about Gorger, and yet we still learned a lot more about him.
We get drip-fed Gorger stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we learned that he was a man once.
Wasn't he the one who was chatting with Gordon when there was like that all-hands meeting with the different monsters?
Probably.
Or was it? It might have been Catcher, but I
think it was Catcher. We were kind of speculating about, like, was Dog, like, a human once? Or was Helen a human once?
No, Helen was an octopus and is now a human.
Yeah, and Gorger was not an octopus. He was, in fact, a human, but is now a rhinoceros.
It's a wild transformation.
Yes. Also, the interesting fact that
his eyes
are decoys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, smart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then that they know, like, his eyes are... Oh, sorry, Billy. Sorry, my cat was at my feet, and I moved and she jumped, like...
How dare you disturb the cat?
Yep. All right. She's just staring at me, like, disgruntled now. Like, I woke her from her sleep, and she's unhappy with that. Was I saying? Yeah, like... And I thought it was interesting that Mauer's group knew enough about Gorger and, like, to know where his eyes were, actually.
Yeah.
Did it say where the eyes were, actually?
In his cheeks.
Okay.
I think. Or at least one of his cheeks.
Yeah.
Which seems...
It seems awfully close to where the eyes are normally to really...
Yeah, like if someone had, like, a bad shot, you know?
Yeah, maybe Gorger
eyes.
is just, like, a regular guy wearing a bigger guy as a suit. Where his eyes like, actually ended up.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was interesting that he gets defeated. Like, he's kind of been hyped up as, like, this unstoppable force.
Well, they note that they like defeated him but not stopped him.
Uh-huh.
Like they throw...
Isn't Gordon the one that, like, Sai and Mary had that conversation about, like, do you think that you could take him on?
I think so, yeah.
And he's like, 4 reasons why not, and then he gives 3 reasons.
Oh yeah, and then
yeah.
The 4th reason is so that you ask about it.
Yes. So he does get chased away. I kind of thought that he died, and then I reread it, and I'm like, oh, I clearly misread that.
No, yeah, he just gets a bunch of grenades to the face and is like, this is okay.
Like,
yeah.
Like, how annoying.
I wonder how much trouble Gorger will be in when he gets back to the academy, and they're like, so...
him, he's in trouble.
Mauer's still out there, and you're not dead. What are you doing back here? Gorger spends the rest of his life following Mauer around the world.
That'd be an interesting story.
It would be, wouldn't it?
It would be very interesting.
You just gave this image of like Gorger in this like trench coat and hat hiding in a crowd trying to get close to Mauer incognito.
Awesome.
The creature set out across the desert and the Gorger followed.
Yep. And then we learn also that apparently the whistle is not binary. Mauer has more control over Whiskers than we thought.
So last week we were talking about how this whistle that Mauer has is probably just on off, like
that's
whistling or not whistling.
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if you could like control him with like a tune? And then it turns out that that's the case. But I just wrote in the notes, whistle is not binary. But then I was reading it backwards, and I'm like, Whiskers is non-binary.
Yeah, I read that also.
Yeah, I read that too, and I was like, oh, I missed that part.
Yep.
That's funny.
So, yes. Two facts, one of which is just me being unable to
all of
notes.
Us apparently write notes. And also, we learned that there is, in fact, in Twig, a demon under the house.
Demon under the house!
Woo! Finally.
I know. Wild.
Malia was just one whole web serial off.
It's so close.
I certainly hope that we do see, though, this super weapon under their feet fired off at some point. Like, I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so casually mentioned. Like, it was like, we know about this. Like, this thing under our feet. And everybody's like, yeah, okay, let's not talk about that at all.
Mm-hmm. And they all know what he's talking about,
I'll
too.
know.
Yeah.
He's like, the super weapon that sleeps under our feet is evidence that
gosh.
this can work. So, I think this is probably Briggs's
super project. Because they talked about him like as one of those people who was like, did that kind of thing, right? Like these big...
Oh, wasn't he the one where they were like, where Briggs was like, oh, well, my project can't participate in this hunt for obvious reasons.
I think so, yeah.
So, the obvious reason being that if he wakes up, we're all doomed.
That is a bit of a downside.
A little bit.
Kind of a big bummer.
I wonder if Mauer knows about this super weapon. Because he knows all these secrets about the Academy, but do you think he would oppose the Academy nearly as much if he knew that there was a demon under the house?
Probably.
I mean, he would oppose them, but would he actively fight them?
Yeah, because I kind of assume the townsfolk don't necessarily know, because if they did, they would leave.
Do you think they could leave?
I think it'd be very hard to leave, but I think the threat of a Twig versus super weapon under your feet is the kind of incentive that ultimately would push someone away from living there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'd think so, but look at all the people who live on volcanoes and earthquake zones and whatever. And
yeah, but those aren't likely to erupt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, super weapons aren't likely to
Yeah, it's totally different.
But yeah, it is not easy to move. It's hard. It's to uproot yourself and your lives away from where you live. It takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is valid that it's certainly possible that people know about it and don't leave because it's a lot of work and it feels unlikely for it to go off. But still,
I also feel like it would really be unlikely that anyone knows about this.
Yeah.
Aside from the actual secret projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a secret project support group.
They probably need one.
Maybe there's a whole hierarchy of secret projects. So these projects know about the super weapon. The super weapon is the only one who knows about the
super
giant
secret
monster
super
orbiting
weapon.
the planet, and
the moon is actually a giant egg.
Yes.
It's just secrets all the way down.
Yep. All right. And the big historical reference this pair of chapters is the war.
Mm-hmm.
This war of conquest towards the south.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I assume it was, because they didn't really say why they were fighting against the Mexicans. I mean, it could just be civil war between two provinces of the Spanish Empire.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I do assume that this is just the crown being like, we want to control everything in the world, and Mexico seems
Is
like a good
next.
place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
I kind of wish I knew more about like colonial history to be like, do you think the empire was like trying to just conquer all the other empires and take over?
I mean, presumably.
Like it did a little bit, like it did a lot before this time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they were still doing it around the Victorian times, or if
I
they were
mean,
just kind of like,
I mean, Victorian. This is what, like 30 years earlier. I mean, the Great Game is like the colonial interplay between Russia and Great Britain over like Central Asia and India, and that's very deeply mid 1800s. It is very Victorian.
okay,
Like there's the whole there's a bunch of conferences splitting up Africa between the different colonial powers in that period also, like splitting up the world into nice European chunks
mm-hmm,
was very much a Victorian practice.
yes, but like once the world's been split up, were
Yeah,
they
well then
still squabbling over? All right, we've split this part into my part and your part. Now
absolutely,
I'm going to take your part.
absolutely.
Because they were definitely doing that in like the 1700s. I mean, that's
Yeah, but like
why the British took over New France,
yeah.
for
No, but
example.
absolutely, it was definitely a thing that, like, the idea of all these different peace conferences and whatnot was that, like, oh, we're going to have peace, but it didn't really play out in reality
Mhm.
because,
Okay.
yeah,
So if this is kind of like peace talks that are just kind of being ignored, and obviously the crown in this story would have no intention of peace,
yeah,
because why have peace when you can make monsters?
exactly. And the impression we get is that the monsters are exclusive to the crown and the academy. Is like they don't talk about the other side fielding Stitched or
Yeah.
cat snakes
Yeah,
or anything.
I think you're right about that. I mean, I would assume that they must have their own technology of some sort,
Well, they have
but
cannons and machine guns.
I mean, if the other sides of the wars didn't have some sort of, I mean, like in this case, you had like conventional machine guns and artillery against
Yeah.
Stitched and whatever, and that was enough for the crown to lose this war or this battle. So I guess,
I think that's more of an impression, like a point of how little the crown actually cares about the soldiers that it's using up. It's like the greater strategic picture does this particular battle does not matter, so we're not going to put any real effort into protecting the people that we have there. They're
mhm.
tools that are just there to be used up until they're no longer there, and then once they're gone, we'll have more of them.
Yeah, but then it's like if they don't care if they win the war.
Well, they care if they win the war. They don't care about this battle. Is the
No,
more what I
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
like. I think the distinction here is between the crown or the. I want to note that specifically Mauer talks about his side being the academy side, not the crown side. We've been conflating the two, but there's been definitely an undercurrent that those two are theoretically distinct.
Well, Mauer does. I didn't notice this, but you did point out in the notes that Mauer refers to his side in this war as the Academy side rather than the
Yeah,
Crown side.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of just see this as Mauer
sure,
thinking of it as thinking of the Crown as the Academy, and
yeah.
thinking the Academy is the big thing.
The part of the
But
institution.
I don't think that necessarily indicates some sort of separation between the Academy
Not
and the Crown.
necessarily. I just thought it was an interesting distinction to
Oh
be
no,
brought up.
definitely. Um,
Um,
yeah. So yeah, we get this whole description of the trench warfare and this really beautiful and kind of devastating. Uh, I'm running out of words. um, but just like the whole first section of that chapter, like
mhm,
nothing really happened.
Yeah.
It's just Mauer sitting there,
breaking down.
yeah, looking at what's happening,
Yeah,
feeling what's happening, seeing what's happening, and thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's just kind of like you said, very evocative earlier, and
yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of really the best way to put it.
I
Yeah.
really wanted to point out how much that one Stitched who's sitting there assembling and deassembling his gun and then reassembling and disassembling it, all of that. is such a stereotypical image that we have of like a soldier with PTSD in one of
Yeah.
like a World War I movie who's sitting in the trench, disassembling, cleaning his gun, reassembling it, disassembling it, cleaning it. It's like there's, and I think this is the point of this first section, is that there is no real distinction between these Stitched who are already dead and the humans who are fighting alongside them, who are essentially already dead.
Yeah.
Mm.
And very much also to the people at the top, to reference Gallipoli again, it's the British soldiers drinking tea in their tent miles away from the front and giving this order for the soldiers to go over the front, over the line, and just die. And it doesn't matter who they are, where they're from, they're just there to die.
And that kind of is the whole point of this in the story, is like, Maurer comes out of it thinking like, well, we all already died, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his last line, right, in the chapter.
Yeah.
And to also talk about Pale again a little bit, and I guess because it's drawing on the same kind of imagery, I very much got from these Stitched the same kind of feeling as the half-formed Dogs of War in John's interlude.
Yeah.
Just like they're killing.
Oh, we forgot to talk about the Stitched at the Monster Corner.
We did.
Oh well, we'll talk about them now.
Yeah, I thought about that earlier. I was like, wait, I have a thing, and then completely forgot about it again. First of all, I did not realize that Stitched were straight up like Frankenstein's monster of like hodgepodge of bodies. I kind of assumed it was a corpse and then like stick wires in it and have it going again. But then they're talking about this one Stitch is like, oh, it has an eye of like a child or a...
Well, they did say that it was just the two out of all of the Stitched they had. Only two of them seemed to have multiple.
Yeah, the one
body
with the, like half black, half white skin, and
yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I don't know maybe just like patching up a Stitch that's like damaged or
Also, one thing about the Stitch that I noticed in this chapter, like last time we were kind of talking about that one Stitch that got its face cut open and there was a big coil of wire underneath. And then I was kind of imagining like, oh, maybe they're like a lot more cyborg than we thought they were. But in this one, it kind of more mentions like they just kind of like make a little cut, run a wire, sew it back up on top again.
They use a balloon, a snargle florp or whatever you called it.
That's it. Yep, that's it. The snargle florp balloon.
Yep.
Okay.
It's such a better name than the names that they actually have, too.
I know. See, they should hire me.
Yep.
Yes.
Stop getting a bunch of like old guys
with their like cars and their
all they're like trying to relive their glory days.
Yep.
No, you need a little bit of goofiness. That's right.
A little bit of whimsy.
Humanity.
Exactly. A little whimsy, exactly.
Anything else you guys want to talk about here?
I do want to warn y'all. I'm starting to get tired.
I am also.
I get weird.
I was also going to say, do we want to cut it off here and reconvene to do the rest of it later, or?
Okay, how much more do we have left of this?
We've all the character stuff, and that's
all
about
the character stuff.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of character stuff in theory.
I think we probably have about an hour of talking left.
Okay, I don't know if I can handle an hour.
Yeah, that's valid.
Sorry. So
no apologies. Great. No apologies needed.
Okay,
let's call it here for now then.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's been really fun.
Thanks for joining us. This has been super fun.
Yeah, this has been really, really great. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Have a good night then.
Yep, you too.
All right. Bye.
Okay, make sure you save all this.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
download
I will save all of this. I will send it to you.
Like a hot dang, have to do it all over.
We just meet every night for 3 weeks trying to get it all.
But we get completely different tangents, completely different vibes.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
We just stitch it all together like a stitch.
Like a weird Frankenstein episode.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's great. Florgle Blaster.